The hearing with Mr. Ferrero, Stark County Prosecutor Ferrero, took place last Thursday.
Yes.
You've had a chance to reflect on it from then till now. I'm particularly interested in the point that he made that if the commissioners persist in making a 23% cut, which I understand from today's meeting with the county treasurer and the county auditor, may be lessened to somewhere around 15% on average. But the prosecutor's point was, I can't accept any cuts because if I do, I'm going to have to go to a system where I ask courts to appoint special prosecutors, and in the end, you'll pay a lot more than what you'll pay if you keep me and my full collection of attorneys on staff. Now that you've had a chance to think about that, was that an effective argument? And are you likely now to think more in terms of excusing the prosecutor's office from any cuts whatsoever?
I think that in the end, when we complete the budget process, that the prosecutor's office is going to have to take some cuts, the same as almost every other office. The reason for that, again, was discussed and I think explained in this morning's work session that we had. Now that we have some pretty solid numbers on carryover and projected revenues and so forth for the year, those revenues are coming in at $47.7 million. Even to maintain the 23% cut levels that we talked about, we needed to reach 46.7. So that means that we have about $1 million over the $46.7 million that we can redistribute to everybody to reduce the cuts. But that $1 million isn't going to go very far, particularly when we look at the budget of the Board of Elections. Again, we have to take a closer and deeper look at everybody's budget submissions, and we intend to do so in the next week to 2 weeks as we try to develop the budget for everyone. But we're going to have to make some value judgments among the various departments as to who can take what cuts and how much in cuts that they can take. I anticipate there's only so much money. There's $47.7 million. The demands upon that pot of money are greater than $47.7 million. So again, people that came in with certain proposed budgets are going to have to take another look at those budgets, and we're going to probably go back to each and every one of them, at least in certain cases, and ask them to relook their budgets. And I think the prosecutor's office is going to be one of them. Again, there's only $1 million extra there.
And if I understand things correctly, it's almost mandatory that the Board of Elections get what they asked for.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Board of Elections submission was $2.48 million compared to 2011, which is 1.96. That's $516,000 more than they were budgeted in 2011. And their justification, again, is, at least on the face, a very good one, and that is a presidential election year is much more expensive than a non-presidential election year. And they actually gave to us I don't have the number in front of me, but they gave to us their 2008 most recent presidential year, and their their actual expenditures in 2008, I believe, are more than they are projecting them to be in 2012. So in those 4 years, they have actually cut their projected costs because they've reduced some of the polling places and some of the precinct numbers, and therefore some of the employment.
And that's a compelling argument for efficiency, correct?
Yes, it's a compelling argument that they have done what they needed to do in the last several years to try to become more efficient. And yet, when you compare the numbers, they are coming in with that number. Whether they can come in at $100,000 less than 516, if we were to discuss that further, I don't know. But I think that at least on the surface, it appears that they need a substantial amount of money more.
Which is almost half of the $1 million
yes.
more than, so that even, assuming, and I understand your point, that it's not really an ironclad assumption that the board will get exactly what they're asking
yes.
for. But assuming that, then that means there's about $500,000 to be spread over the remaining departments of government.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And the prosecutors are cut. The difference between the prosecutor taking a 23% cut, and I don't want to see the prosecutor take a 23% cut because I understand what it would do to his operations, but the difference between him taking a 23% cut and no cut, that's $678,000. So just between the prosecutor alone and the Board of Elections,
It's all gone.
it's more than all gone.
Right.
And this doesn't take into account the difference between the Court of Common Pleas General Division taking a 23% cut or a 10% cut that they came in with on their proposed budget. That difference alone in that number, which is a very significant number, is $400,000 also. So again, I think we're going to have to go back to everyone. We may need to go back to the Common Pleas Court and say you need to take a greater cut than 10%. I don't know what the final numbers will be, but I think we're going to have to go to the prosecutor and say your budget is going to be comparable in some way, shape, or form probably to the percentage cuts that are being taken by the other offices.
Right.
You know, there's only so much money out there to distribute, and there's only so many large users. You know, the commissioner's office, by the way, and we are prepared to take a 23% cut, but there's no more money than that to cut, you know, because some offices are very small. The coroner's office is another one. Some of these departments and offices are very, very small, and you can't make large cuts because there's no place to make cuts to them. So probably the maximum you're going to see is going to be 23% cuts for many entities. The treasurer, the auditor, the commissioners have come in at 23% cuts. We're going to try to, perhaps if we can, to reduce some of the cuts, as we discussed, to the Common Pleas Court and reduce them to the prosecutor to the extent that we can. But I think that when we complete this budget process, as you can see, there is only so much money to go around, and you add the Board of Elections into that mix. I mean, it evidences that there has to be some across-the-board cuts to almost every department.
When do you anticipate the final decision be made as to what the appropriations are going to be for 2012?
I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate on a date. I would hope to keep working on this on a daily basis. I'll probably be meeting either later today or tomorrow with the auditor again and discussing these matters with him and so forth, and Mr. Hankey and Mr. Flory, and then we'll have another meeting with all of us and so forth, and then I think we need to start talking to some of the individual office holders again. I would like to have a general meeting with all elected officials in the near future again so that they can share and understand, and this is pretty much the same budget numbers that we put out last summer. The numbers haven't changed, which is good. It indicates that we have good control and good estimates on our numbers. Everything's very much in the same ballpark that they were 6 months ago. But we need to re-emphasize everybody that there is only so much money in the pot. It has to be spread around in certain manners, and that therefore everybody has to realize that until we have the full revenues from the criminal justice sales tax, which won't occur until 2013, we all have to make the anticipated cuts this year.
So
we intend to work with everyone.
By the end of the month, do you think?
This
is the 23rd, so it's a little over a week.
I think it's going to be more closer to February 15.
Oh, in the middle of February? Okay.
But again, I think it's going to be a day-to-day, week-to-week type of thing that we will continue to work on this. I think the bulk of the work is done, and that we know the revenue side right now. We know the first round of the proposed budget expense side of this thing. So now it's making those numbers.
And basically what I want to boil it down to, Commissioner Ferguson, is my take on the prosecutor's presentation was you really have no choice but to appropriate to me at 2011 levels, if not 2010 levels, because if you don't, then we're going to invoke this process where we ask the courts to appoint special prosecutors, and not only will we spend that money, you'll have to spend more money. And then you've had a chance to think that over since Thursday, just on an individual basis. I know you have to make a collective decision, but what's your take on that kind of presentation?
Well, here's the thing. We did the sales tax for criminal justice, and the Sheriff's Department, the courts, the prosecutor's office, they're all included in this. You know, my opinion is we can't afford to lay off any more attorneys and then hire people on the outside who are going to charge more money. I think that's kind of ridiculous. So I think we're trying to look, all three of us are trying to look at all the numbers. Maybe 23% cut won't be necessary in all the departments like we thought. Maybe we can drop it down to 18 or 19 or 20% or whatever.
Like the discussion we had,
like the discussion we had
earlier today.
That maybe, you know, we won't have to cut it every department 23%. Maybe we could look at it, maybe the criminal justice system, maybe we could get down to maybe a 15% cut, and the others maybe 19 or 20%. We have to weigh this. One of the things that we really cared about when we put the sales on was the safety of the people of this county, and you know, the prosecutor is part of that safety, and the sheriff is part of that safety, the courts are part of that safety. I think we have to look at it, Martin, that you know, what is the fairest way to do it? What's the safest thing? What's the best way to do it? And you know, we don't want the prosecutor to lay off more attorneys than he has to, because again, you're getting in a situation if we have to hire attorneys on the outside, it's going to probably cost us more money.
But as you see it now, would it be fair to say you think it's likely there is going to be some cuts at the prosecutor's office?
You know, I'd say right now, and again, not based on this morning's conversation or meeting we had, the other day I thought, yeah, there probably would be some more cuts made in the prosecutor's office. But now that we see what we learned this morning, that maybe it won't be as bad, and we have to